Hi, folks. Welcome to episode 7 of Break the Cycle. I wanted to talk about breaking the cycle of discrimination against women. I am by no means qualified to talk about it as a man because I have a lot of privileges that a lot of women, in fact, almost all women, don't have. And I know I'm generalizing here, but like I said, I don't know enough. So I am going to put myself in the back seat and be the learner here. And I requested my friend Anika, who works for an organization called Breakthrough, to be a part of this show, to teach me and anyone else who needs to listen and learn about how to break this cycle of patriarchy. I hope you enjoy the episode, and as always, I'd love to hear from you about what you think. Enjoy. Hi, Anika.
Hi, Aadhar.
How you doing?
I am surviving.
You're surviving. Thank you for being a part of this. I know I've caught you off guard with the whole setup.
Yeah, it is a little daunting.
Right, so we're going to try and ease you into this. But yeah, this is a subject that I very openly felt that I know close to nothing about. And so I decided, hey, who better to talk to? So before we begin, if you could tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Right. I design campaigns for an organization called Breakthrough India. We work on different aspects of gender issues, but primarily looking at how it affects women and girls. There's a lot of work which we do on ground, but we use a lot of media tools, including digital media, to spread our messages and awareness. It's a very, very large topic, but the idea is to break it down into digestible pieces of information, and that's where I come in. So because I'm sort of a digital junkie, I have 2 Twitter accounts, 2 Insta accounts, and I'm not gonna bore you with more.
You have
Yeah.
2 Twitter accounts and 2 Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think they can see me, but that's like a major question mark on my head because I can't handle one.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a junkie, so
Right. So we were talking about this earlier before we began, how I feel that no matter which position I may be in, I think the safest place for me to kind of start this topic is that I know next to nothing and I can't begin to fathom the issues that women and girls face. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of us, men specifically, and I don't speak for all men, but most men at least, do not really understand the nuances of the issues at hand. So I was hoping that you could treat this like a classroom and teach me, so that I'm a little more aware and a little more sensitive. Because there are a lot of things I think we end up doing unconsciously because of, well, I mean, I could call it conditioning, but I would probably be blaming my unconscious behavior on. So
like I said, it's a very, very vast topic, and I think I'm gonna start with our stories as people. Something as simple as how we experience life.
right,
So if I look at you, so you were born male. You grew up with the notions that you're a boy.
right.
Why is that?
I guess I was told to.
All right. Do you still think you're a boy/man now?
I would guess, giving conventional wisdom.
Why? Why do you think that you're a man in the most conventional sense or understanding?
I would shoot it to put it like very crassly. I would probably put it to biological urges. I mean, if that makes sense.
It can.
Yeah.
If you can define the urges.
I am more attracted to women than I am to men. I think that's the conventional barometer,
Yeah.
I guess.
But let's leave that aside, because you could also be a woman and still be attracted to women.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really make you a man. That just makes
True,
you
yeah.
somebody who's attracted to women. But what makes you a man?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Is it the way that you built? You were born with a certain genitalia? Is that enough reason for you to be calling yourself a man?
I would say that, I mean, given the so-called written tenets that have basically been passed down to me from my parents and everyone else and societal conditions, I would kind of
Give me
go
an
with that. Sure, I mean, and yes, physical attributes, I'm built a certain way. Yes, the genitalia bit comes in as well. But if I were to sit down and say, okay, I identify as a man because of this, and that's my opinion, I am not very sure.
So
I mean, like a non-conditioned response is something I'm not very aware of.
that's fine. I think it's a very simple question here for you to answer. That you experience life because as a man. But what does that mean to you? What does being a man mean to you? Like right now, today, what does that mean to you? Forget that we're in a very politically correct situation here.
No, I'm not gonna go with the. I'm not gonna go with the politically correct bit. But I think, for me specifically, it's probably just living up to the ideals that I've kind of set for myself. While I'm not gonna throw in vague terms like being a protector, because I mean my mother's my protector, so that technically doesn't fit into the whole male thing. But yeah, I guess, I mean,
All right. Okay. So, what you're trying to deflect here is
I'm
that
not even aware if I'm deflecting anything, but yeah, okay.
I do not want to create a stereotype here, but my question, the reason I asked you this question is, how do you perceive life?
Right.
And you gave me very, very simple answers, which were not really linked to your gender.
Right,
Yeah, that is you as a person.
right.
You know, you like women. You have certain ideas about yourself and how you want to be.
Absolutely.
Now, let's actually break it down to what I feel. So,
Right.
Since we're talking about us, I was born a girl. I'm supposed to be a girl, a woman when I grow up because of all the biological reasons that are there.
Right.
As a teenager, of course, I was very confused with menstruation.
Right.
Why does it happen to me? I do not want this femininity
Right.
associated with me. But I was very, very confused. And as I grew older, I realized that I have to be a certain way. Like
Okay.
you had to be a certain way.
Yeah.
Because I'm a girl. So it's as simple as that. What is the whole idea behind being a certain way is where we get into gendered roles and expectations.
Okay.
So I'm a girl. I'm not supposed to, be somebody who asks out a guy because that's not okay. Girls don't do that.
Right.
There are a lot of things that girls do not do,
Right.
which also mean girls, the way I'm sitting right now, I'm not supposed to sit with my legs spread wide open because that's not okay for girls to do. And I'm sure you also might have heard of a lot of rules for yourself being a guy. And those rules actually do not come in a PowerPoint presentation. Those are just fed into you as you grow up with your peers. So what I'm actually asking everybody to do is just look at how, like I said, how you experience life, how certain ideas are shaped in your head. Like I gave you my example of how a girl should be. I need to have long hair. Otherwise, I'm not a girl enough. Um, I need to be always covered and always be, careful when I'm around men. Again, this is all conditioning. These are all unwritten rules of being a girl and a guy. I think when we talk about these issues, it's the most important thing is you have to keep yourself in the center.
Right.
Because it's not just about what I work on, it's also about what I believe in, is that personal is political.
Right.
Yeah. And till the time you're not able to place yourself into any conversation,
Yeah.
I'm not saying be self-obsessed and be narcissistic,
Of
but
course. Yeah.
yeah. So of course, I'll unwrap it as we go along. So what I'm talking about is there are certain gendered expectations and roles we are all supposed to play.
Right.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the whole idea of a man being a protector, while you may not agree with it, it is a message that is given to boys.
Yes.
Take care of your sister.
Yes.
Help her, when she's in a public space, go and drop her, go and pick her up. Ensure that she's safe.
Or the age old, you're the man of the house.
Yeah, you're the man of
Right.
the house. And what does that really mean? Can a woman not be the head of a house? Or is something missing there? So I think there are a lot of questions and a lot of things that one can explore. But yeah.
Here's my confusion, though.
Yeah.
And forgive my ignorance because I could be completely off with this. We have seen some societies, maybe not up north of the country, where the women are actually leading the house, or considered the leaders of the house. So where's that gap really? Like when it comes to, and I'm probably going off topic completely here because I mean obviously we're looking at the inequalities that are there based on gender, and I believe it's not just about the two conventional genders that exist. There is a whole conversation about a whole host of them now. But just from that perspective, where is this concept of this one leads or this one leads coming from? Or how have we is there a place where we've bridged that gap at all?
I would not want to praise them, but I think the European society is, or some parts of the European society is slightly closer to that equality. However, looking at the larger context of our world and our country as well, what you asked about who leads what is actually linked to the idea of who controls the resources. And that's the most basic human need. To have resources, to have food, to have shelter. And thanks to capitalism, to have money. And
Yeah.
everything else then gets converted into the need for power
Right.
and to control people's lives.
Right.
That's where the whole thing kind of leans in, where there is a conversation around who leads and who's more powerful. And I think the whole... let me rephrase this. It's about the fight for who controls maximum resources, right?
So you're talking about resources, right?
Yeah.
I get the part where you're talking about power, but when you're talking about okay, I don't even know if this is a word. Familial, is that a word?
Yeah, it's a
okay,
word.
so in a familial context,
Yeah.
talking about families, I mean, we have this entire thing about families are together and how you're one unit. Where is the concept of power coming there?
Exactly. I think the something where we have to think through when we talk about families and structures and dynamics is the whole idea that what does a family mean? A family constitutes typically a man who's married to a woman and they produce children.
Right.
Uh,
I mean, if we're looking at a very, very
yeah.
conventional concept. Okay.
I,
Yeah.
I think that's how the concept of family also originated. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, there is a lot of debate on how a family structure should be and should it be fluid enough. But I do agree that it should be, that people should be able to choose what they, and who they call family. But that's another conversation.
Right.
Here I'm talking about a very typical structure of a man who goes, and again, this is a structure that we're all born into. Most of us are born into, and we sort of follow it through as we go forward in life. There is a man who's the father. He is also the provider of the family. Simple enough, right? He's the one who brings in money, food, takes care of the family. There is the mother. The mother's always a woman. Typically.
Typically.
Uh, and she's supposed to bear children and give birth, right?
Yeah.
The only issue is that when a child is born, whose name or who has more rights over that child? It's the man, right? It's the father. You are given your father's name. You're given you're under your father's protection, and that includes a mother as well. Like I said, typically.
Yeah.
So the whole idea that a woman is the woman is going to produce children for another family. So the whole idea, and here is where son preference actually comes in, that you want to have a son where the resources of that particular family are given to the son, because the daughter leaves. She gets married off and she leaves and becomes a part of another family.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you talk about who fights for that power, it's the person who's the owner. And I'm saying it in the most crass ways. The father is looked as, but not necessarily treated as, the owner of that family. And hence, he's the head of the family. He's the main decision maker. And the woman, of course, who's supposed to be his equal, ends up doing the softer work, which is domestic chores, taking care of the children, taking care of everybody's needs, becomes the secondary decision maker.
Okay.
So if you go through, like I said, if you go and look at this whole dynamic, you'll start seeing where the difference starts, emerging.
Right.
So what I mean to say is everything is about money.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Patriarchy's greatest ally is power and control over resources. And that justifies everything. That justifies inequality. It justifies how a woman should be treated in a family. It justifies the whole idea that one has to have sons in the family to keep the resources within the family. So, like I said, every social inequality's root is money and resources.
Wow, that's a mic drop for me. I'm just trying to process this for a second. Okay, so wait, are you saying... Okay, you're not really saying that, but alright, I get the point that it ends up becoming about resources.
In a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways. But then when we're talking about at least my conversations around patriarchy, and I've had very few, have largely been about, I think, the ethics, which I believe is, again, my belief, no idea about it, no idea, not an authority, nada. About the ethics that come in, the conduct towards men, women, every other gender, and let's face it, the ignorance of men, specifically. I am going to call that out. We're fucking ignorant.
Here is where I'm going to get a little more theoretical and jargon heavy. And thanks to social media, a lot of people now have understood the word privilege.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, what does privilege mean according to you, if you were to define it?
I mean, I would say that a lot of things are given to me fairly easily because of a number of factors, my gender being one of them.
Other than your gender?
Financial status, I believe the family I was born into, caste for sure, although I'm not really aware of that. I mean, I haven't gone that deep into it, but I'm pretty sure that kind of factors in. The color of my skin.
There you go. The reason, of course,
Yeah.
the caste angle is also something that actually speaks volumes about how we're all of a privileged caste, and
Absolutely.
hence we do not know, because the discrimination on the basis of caste doesn't affect us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Similarly, discrimination on the basis of gender does not affect men the same way.
Right.
Or it does not, I'd say, it does not put men at a disadvantage the way it does for women and other genders.
True. Wouldn't you say that men are the instigators of that discrimination?
I'd say that it's a system.
Right.
Patriarchy is a system.
Okay.
So is capitalism, by the way. And together it's a deadly combination. So I think if I could draw, I would draw what patriarchy does for people, and I'm going to talk strictly in binaries here, men and women.
Okay.
The system of patriarchy, what does it want from men? It wants men to be powerful. It wants men to be the breadwinners of the family. They want men to be aggressive, masculine. Again, like I said, somebody who's pretty strong according to what the system has set for them. But what does it want from women? Patriarchy typically wants women to be subservient. They want the system wants women to be submissive, and that is why it's been kept alive for this long, because it was easier to control women, and it's easier to elevate men, and that's how the system has been working. However, the system stops working when men and women start thinking for themselves.
Right.
So I do not blame just men, but I also say that the system gives them a lot of advantage. Like we discussed, privilege. The reason why men can't see how their behaviors affect women, say at a workplace, is because men have a male privilege. And your privilege actually stops you from understanding what somebody else is going through.
Right.
Yeah. And it puts you at a pedestal, at a much higher ground where you just cannot see below what's happening. It's also because power elevates, and when you take away that power from women, and that's what patriarchy does, it puts women down. So like I said, there was a level which is patriarchy. It elevates men and it dismisses women. That is how patriarchy functions. However, men also face issues because of patriarchy, and so do women, but they face it in very different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Men face it because there's an extreme amount of pressure on them to perform. And masculinity is about performance.
Yeah.
To perform, you have to take risks. To perform, you have to be better than everybody else. To perform, you have to take everything that you feel entitled to. That means...
A very egoistic view of me.
Yes. And that's where it's not for sure that every man is able to perform at that level as is expected of him, and he starts failing. And the whole idea that you're not a man enough is where the problem starts happening. And hence, a chamber of insecurity has been created within the idea of masculinity, that you have to be a man enough. And if you're not man enough, you will be bullied, you will be called out, you will be mocked, and your life basically sucks and you should die. And hence, the suicide rates amongst men are at an all-time high at this point.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Of course, I could talk on and on about what it does to women. But if there are specific questions, because I have a long list, and it's also coming from a very personal space of rage. But let me not get into that right now.
No, actually, I do want to get into that. I actually wanted, which is something I do, is ask people to kind of share personal experiences, because while the message is important, I think that people relate more when it's coming from someone who's faced it and has gotten out of it.
Absolutely. And that's why I said one has to place yourself in any topic that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I do that too. And it's very personal for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I call myself a feminist,
Mm-hmm.
and I've called myself a feminist since the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because I could not understand why I have to be treated differently.
Mm-hmm.
I could not understand that why my mother was mocked for not bearing sons, and she has 2 daughters.
Right.
I could not understand why is that a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I could not understand that why am I supposed to be under somebody's protection. And when I say somebody, it's either an elder who, it could be my father, my mother, or some other man,
Mm-hmm.
or a boy, like a younger cousin who's 4 years younger than me, and yet he's equipped enough to take care of me and I'm not. And that made me feel small.
Mm-hmm.
I could not understand that why, if I liked a boy, I could not go up to him and ask him out.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not understand why I would be judged for it, that I would be slut-shamed for it, that I cannot make the first move, that I cannot be out at night alone the way I want to be. I could not understand why I couldn't wear certain kinds of clothes that I wanted to wear. And all of this got answered when I was living in my hometown. It's a small town in UP, where I learned for the very first time that the whole idea that I need to be covered and I need to wear certain kinds of clothes to be safe was sort of true. Because I kept blaming myself. I was very young. I was 13 years old when I got molested in the middle of the road. And that didn't stop. I used to get molested every other week. And that really, really made me think, what am I doing wrong here? I'm adhering to every rule that I've been handed out, while I don't agree with it, but I have to keep myself safe. Why does it have to be this way? And I just could not find the answer. And I found that answer at the age of 18 when I started reading feminist literature and understanding what feminism actually means. It just means that women do not have to take shit from the society just because they're women. It's as simple as that. That women deserve to be treated equally with respect. Just the way I wanted to be treated as a human being, and not be molested or stalked every other day, and not then modify my life according to how I can be safe. So basically, I was very confused. Like I said, I did not understand how to stay safe, and why did I have to stay safe? Because it's not my fault. To the point that in all of this confusion, I went and chopped up my hair and I started wearing boy clothes. And that's true, I can show pictures. Just so I could stay safe when I'm out of my house. So, yeah, I mean, we all women, have been through this, and they know that, you take certain measures to keep yourself safe eventually. And there is a certain fear that you live with and grow up with. So I know, and this gets very dark when we talk about assault. And that's the thing about sexual assault, that it's not of a particular kind as we've all known. There are many nuances to sexual assault as well. But what it leaves you with is... and like I said, molestation is sexual assault as well. It kind of leaves you with this question, like, why me? What did I do wrong? What did I do to deserve this? And then I realized, actually, I do deserve respect. As simple as that. And I think that's all I want to just say. While feminism itself is again a very broad, topic to sort of unfold, but I think it's just about that. Why can't I be treated as an equal? Is I think most women feel.
Well, I'm gonna move to my next question.
Yeah.
I think what I do want to ask is that the conversations, thankfully, have been on a rise with respect to the inequalities that women face. And yes, there are a lot of topics, a lot of discussions around patriarchy as well. What is the work that's currently being done in order to break this pattern that a lot of people have with respect to patriarchy? Because I know on one end that there are a lot of organizations that are working with women to kind of at least educate them and tell them that they do have the power to break out of this. Is there something being done with men as well?
Yeah, I think that's a question we should all be asking, and not just from the civil society organizations. I actually push back on this because I work in a feminist organization. We work on issues of violence against women, particularly.
Right.
And newsflash, discrimination is violence.
Right.
Are we okay with that?
Of course.
Of course,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
But general knowledge doesn't really agree with that discrimination and violence are two different things. However, they're not. Many times discrimination is a gateway to violence. Many times discrimination itself is violence, and the consequences of it.
Right.
The kind of work that is being done right now is to look at how young people understand gender, how they understand equality, inequality, how they understand what is expected of them, what do they want to be in life. And that's where you start. You start early. You start working with adolescents, actually, from the age of 11. That's where children start, that's where your conditioning begins. The real conditioning begins. And it's been scientifically proven that puberty is where you create certain notions about, people, life, the world, which actually remain unchanged throughout. And it's tough to change them later on. Therefore, you start working with sensitizing children at a younger age, say from the class when they enter middle school.
Okay.
And that's where we also start working at Breakthrough. And we work with boys and girls, both.
Okay.
Simply for one reason. And we have two approaches with both of them. But the common understanding is that we all treat each other with respect. And there's no real difference between how people are. And equal doesn't mean same. Right. So you and I could be equal, but we don't have to be same. And that's the whole idea about this gender sensitization that is happening at a school level.
Okay.
And working with boys is a very, very important thing, because we're also looking at generational change. No change comes in a day. Somebody who's actually grown up with the idea that I'm a man and I'm a gift to this world, and who has a big sticker, on his car which says like Casanova and girls, I'm here, beware. So that guy's not gonna change in a day.
Yeah.
Because of everyday messages he's got from his family and society and peers. Therefore, you have to start working with boys at a very early age, and for them to start questioning the inequalities in their own lives, how their sisters are treated, how their mothers are treated, how they are treated, because they're boys. So that's an interesting space that most of the work has been happening. And I do agree with your point on working with men as well, because while I'd say there's been a lot of work done on how to empower women. You don't have to empower women. I mean,
Right.
women have the power. You just have to channelize that and ensure
Yeah.
there is a environment where women can flourish.
Mm-hmm.
The same hasn't been done for men to give up that power.
Right.
Why would a man want to give up that power?
Mm-hmm.
Because that makes me powerful and strong. Why should I give it to somebody else when I can control things?
Mm-hmm.
However, what does work is empathy.
Mm-hmm.
The empathy that is sort of missing in a very masculine culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 Because empathy is seen as a weak trait. Empathy is seen as something that a woman would have, but a man needn't necessarily show.
Can I be really stereotypical and call it a soft trait?
Of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the things that you probably end up hearing.
Yeah, that he's a soft guy. Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a sissy and all that nonsense that we
Yeah.
all hear.
Uh-huh.
But it's also missing from how you're conditioned as well.
Mm-hmm.
That you're not supposed to feel certain emotions as a man. You're not supposed to also value them. So therefore, I think it's going to be a tough task
Mm-hmm.
for somebody to give up that power. And I'm not talking about giving up their rights,
Yeah.
because that's what men's rights activists actually fight for, and that's the whole point. All rights have been given to men. The idea is not to take away any rights, but to take away the power that actually puts them at a higher plane than other genders. And it's a very tough journey. But we've seen that even working with different men's groups, and you have to start small. You have to work with individuals. I do a lot of work on masculinity and working with men and boys, and I feel that now the focus should be on transformation of how men view the world and what they want in life,
Right.
and how they just live also. I mean, there are a lot of gendered expectations from men also.
Right.
But what is it that will make them feel that we're all in it together? I mean, that's it. And just treat each other with respect, with genuine respect,
Right.
and to understand that vulnerabilities are not always bad,
Mm-hmm.
for the man and for a woman also. That if a woman is vulnerable, let me go and take advantage of that. I mean, that has to stop, definitely. But also to stop the whole idea that if I feel vulnerable, I'm less of a man.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the whole thing that if you're more feminine, it's bad. If you're more masculine, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
So that binary also needs to break. And that will break as we have more conversations. There are mass media messages that go out. I think I do want to point out that in the Indian context, why this began. There's a lot of conversation on how women are treated and, gender inequalities, all of that. While we've all known it at a certain level,
Mm-hmm.
the highlight, I'd say, or the milestone that comes to my mind is the Nirbhaya Jyoti Singh
Yeah.
case that happened in Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
That actually woke up this nation, this entire nation, that there is violence happening towards women, and it can't be taken lightly anymore.
Right.
While there have been like thousands and lakhs of rapes and murders before
Yeah.
that, this was that turning point where television, where media, where the justice system, the Aam Janta actually, took notice and realized that there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
While nobody could understand how to start that change, but there was a lot of conversation and there were mass movements, there were a lot of protests, and I mean, the whole world knows about it now. And I think there was a big push towards this idea that women are treated badly. More than that, women are killed for being a woman. Rapes happen so regularly. And I think what really breaks my heart is that it took an act of violence for us to realize that.
I think we also, I mean, this is just my perception of it, because probably, and I'm guilty of being party to this. when a lot of these discussions were happening, I think a lot of us just, the cynics, and I say was because, sure, I think I have hope in humanity now. But I think the cynic in me said, nothing's going to change, nothing's ever going to change. All you can do is be safe and, treat the symptom, which is arm the women. You know how everyone's like, it's just like, arm the person, use a weapon. Something like that. Everyone started with self-defense classes, and that was part of what I was doing for a while. But then I don't really think that a systemic, to my mind, that was, and I think I had a realization then as well, that that's just treating a symptom, but this is going to be something that's very long term. But do you think we kind of lost the narrative of we need to focus on the cause rather than just treat the effect? Or are we doing that now? Are we doing that now? Are we treating the cause or are we treating the effect?
I think we're doing both. And what is harder, of course, you and I both are in agreement that it's tougher to treat the cause, the root cause of it, because that's where the most backlash begins. The whole conversation has been about violence against women. But like in the most theoretical ways that I work in my workplace, we break it down. Why does that happen? Why is it so normalized and why is it so okay? Why are certain laws about around safety of women, sexual harassment laws, assault, domestic violence, why are they so recent? Yeah, they never existed in this country, but it's only after a lot of push from different activists and different stakeholders actually that these laws got formed. And that's pretty recent. And it takes that, India got independence in 1947. The DV law came into existence around 2002, 2003. Including issues like child sexual abuse, which comes under POCSO, also very recent in the last 2 decades. So now imagine where we stand. Everything is very new. Understanding that violence against children, women, girls, young boys, people who are vulnerable, we've started understanding that, and we started working on policies that would take care of that, but also started working on messaging rather recently. So I think it's going to take generations to actually make that dent. But my point about violence is that, again, these are ways, these are all, the laws exist so that, you can access it when something bad happens to you. Right. But the preventive part is still missing. And the preventive part can only be worked on if you work with, if you actually break down why it happens. Like you said, work with the cause, work with why
it's happening.
Why it's happening. And the simple reason is that women are not valuable or important enough. One can discard them. Right? One has complete access or entitlement over their bodies. Marital rape still exists, and we're still not ready to have that conversation in this country.
I was about to get into that right now.
So I think violence happens at the last level. Before that, there is there's a lot of things that we're not really addressing. It's just begun, and a lot of feminists actually get flack for talking about them, talking about why patriarchy exists and how women are at a disadvantage, we may like it or not. It's an inconvenient truth. Right. And we're not ready to have that conversation as a society. The value of a woman, that she's a burden on a family, she's a burden on the society. Her safety becomes a challenge. Her biological needs become a challenge. There's a reason why people do not want to hire women at workplaces. There's a reason why, because of safety concerns, people are still, sort of stuck that if should I hire a woman, do I need to provide cab to her? What if something happens to her? Then I have to, like, my organization has to take the fall, and that actually prevents women from actually entering the workplaces. Why should I invest in my girl child when I have to get her married off eventually? So I mean,
that one.
there is just a lot of discrimination, like I said,
Yeah.
and it eventually leads to violence, the physical violence that we see. So, like I said, if there was a chart I could draw right now, I would. But, like, both of us agree on that we have to look at the different causes with the most critical lens and keep on asking the question why. Why? Till the time we are not ready to do that, we're not going to move an inch.
I guess you answered a bit of my second last question, but I'm still going to go ahead and ask it. Typically, I would ask, what do you think that people could do? Like, just actionable steps on how they could kind of break out of this particular cycle. But here I'm just going to ask you for step 1. Because I don't think people have even taken that step yet.
Yeah.
So what is the one thing we could do to at least start kind of breaking out of this pattern?
I don't think I can answer that with one step, really.
Okay.
But, just considering that women are human beings on their own, they are pretty much equal to anybody else, any man that's around her. I mean, if there is that understanding that she's a human being with her own complexities and her own issues and her own biases also, with her own challenges, I think that is good enough. And you have to look at women beyond just a burden or an object or a body. I think that is step 1, really. Like, I'm going to do an ABCD here. Like, literally teaching the alphabet.
Yeah.
But if we just start looking at women as people, there is that. And also trusting them with taking decisions for themselves and for others as well. Because it's very easy to arm a woman and say that, this is how you stay safe. But when will we ask the society this question, that why aren't women safe?
When does it end?
Yeah, when does it end? Why does it have to happen in the first place? If she's out of her house, so what? Even if she's in the house, she's not yours to, access. So I think it's the dehumanization of women that has actually landed us here. And I'm just glad that a lot of women of our generation and even older generation have been speaking about it. And I think there is another very important aspect here that we all forget and we do not talk about is sexuality. The patriarchal society is afraid of a woman's sexuality, especially when she owns it. It is okay to abuse it through a man, where the man kind of owns it,
Right.
where the man is entitled to it. But when it comes to expression of sexuality from a woman herself, or the lack of expression of sexuality, that also is a choice. That actually disturbs the patriarchal dynamic. And our society is afraid of that woman. We need to understand, again, women are complex beings just like men are complex beings. Women have their own needs. Women have their own ideas. And if only there was a space to express without being judged, without facing violence as well, and making choices. Because you need another podcast on just understanding what male gaze has created a monster that...
I'm probably going to have to do that because
Yeah.
this is a vast
Yes.
subject.
Yeah, just think of women as people and you're good.
You get started. You get started. Right. So my last question, and this is only if you're comfortable. Where can these people reach out to you in case they want to know more?
I don't think I'm an expert on anything, but I also don't shut up. So that's what feminism did to me. Um, but I'm actually proud of getting a chance to be out there and speaking up and working on the issue, which is very close to my heart. Uh, I am, like I said, I have two Twitter accounts, but you can reach out to me on Twitter and Instagram both. On Twitter, I can be found at Anika Verma, which is ANIKAVERMALA. That's my Twitter handle. And on Instagram, you can just look for the Anika Verma, THEANIKAVERMA. So, yeah, that's where I'm generally found if I'm not in a meeting or stuck in traffic.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, traffic.
Yeah, that's Delhi traffic. Took me a while to get here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anika. This has been my favorite one. I will say this. This has been one of my favorite episodes. This has been my favorite episode, is what I'm going to say.
Wow.
Because I think this was an important conversation that needed to be had, and at least get started. And I know a lot of people are doing that, at least scratching the surface. But I think we need to go further. And like you said, the more of us, the more we talk about it, the more the message gets out.
Yeah. I think because it's been a man's world for so long, men can actually do well without some of that pressure off. Like without that pressure, distribute it. Distribute the power.
Delegate.
Give it up.
Give it up. Decentralize.
And you can breathe easy. Women will do just fine. Just chill out. Everybody's.
In some cases, a better job. But that's a discussion for later. I am so getting flack for this. But thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Yeah, this was fun.
All right, guys. I am not going to go with my customary note. I am going to say that I think it's high time we start talking about this and start doing something about this. So, until next time, bye.